The massive alien ship appeared like a dark mountain in space. It was bigger than any human city, its black metal hull covered with strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship moved slowly toward Earth, casting shadows on the moon as it passed. Admiral Taman stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching the alien vessel through the main screen. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, their faces tense with worry. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Park. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she worked the controls. "Put it on the main screen," Taman ordered. The screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. A tall creature with blue-gray skin and 4 arms stood in the center. Its eyes were large and black, like pools of oil. Behind it, other aliens of different shapes and sizes stood in formation. Some had scales, others had fur, and one looked like it was made of living crystal. "I am High Arbiter Velthon of the Galactic Council," the creature spoke. Its voice was cold and mechanical, translated by some device that made every word sound harsh. "You are the species called humans. We have watched you spread across your small corner of space like a disease." Taman said nothing. He crossed his arms and waited. "Your kind has been colonizing worlds without permission," Velthon continued. "You build settlements where you should not. You take resources that belong to the Council. You are chaotic and dangerous. This cannot continue." The alien gestured with one of its 4 hands, and the screen split to show images of massive fleets. Thousands of ships filled the darkness of space, each one bigger than Earth's largest warships. The ships were sleek and powerful, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. "Behold the might of the Galactic Council," Velthon said. 12 species united under our rule. 1,000 years of peace maintained by our strength. You will surrender to us within 72 of your hours, or we will take your world by force." More images appeared on the screen. Burning planets. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away to nothing. The message was clear. "You will provide 60% of your population to work on our worlds," the alien continued. "Your military will be dissolved. Your government will serve under Council oversight. This is not a negotiation. This is your only choice." Captain Sujin watched from the bridge of her ship, the Defiant. She was humanity's youngest captain, but she had seen more combat than most. Her crew stood silent around her, their faces hard with anger. "They want us to be slaves," whispered her navigation officer. "They think we're weak," Sujin replied quietly. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Taman stepped forward to respond. The alien delegation waited for his answer, their alien faces showing no emotion. They had done this before. They knew how it would end. Then something happened that they did not expect. Taman began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle, then grew into a deep, hearty laugh that echoed through the command center. The sound carried through the transmission to the alien ship, where the Council representatives stood in confusion. "You find our ultimatum amusing?" Velthon asked, its voice sharp with irritation. "Oh yes," Taman said, wiping tears from his eyes. "Very amusing indeed. You know, we've been waiting for this conversation for a very long time." The alien's large black eyes narrowed. "Waiting? 72 hours, you said?" Taman grinned. "That's very generous of you. We'll be ready." He made a gesture and the transmission cut off. The aliens were left staring at a blank screen, uncertain what had just happened. In 1,000 years of conquest, no species had ever laughed at their ultimatum. On Luna Base, the command center erupted into activity. Officers rushed to their stations as red lights flashed throughout the facility. But this wasn't panic. This was preparation. "Send the signal," Taman ordered. "Protocol 7 is now active." Lieutenant Park's fingers flew over her controls. "Signal sent, sir." All colonies confirm receipt. Across human space, the message spread faster than light itself. On Mars, the mining foreman Kyung-ho received the signal and smiled grimly. He had been waiting 30 years for this moment. Around him, what looked like simple mining equipment began to change, unfolding into something very different. On Europa Station, Dr. Haiwan read the message and immediately activated hidden systems throughout the facility. What the aliens thought was a simple research station suddenly became something much more dangerous. In the asteroid belt, Commander Boram watched her screens as dozens of mining platforms received the signal. Their crews were already moving, preparing for work they had trained for their entire lives. The Galactic Council had made one critical mistake. They thought humans were just another primitive species, stumbling around the galaxy without purpose. They saw chaos where there was actually careful planning. They saw weakness where there was hidden strength. Every human colony, every trade ship, every research station had been built with one purpose in mind. Not exploration. Not commerce. Not science. War. For 70 years, since humanity's first contact with alien life, they had been preparing for this exact moment. Every ship was designed to fight. Every settlement was built to survive. Every human in space had trained for the day when someone would try to conquer Earth. The aliens had given them 72 hours to surrender. They had no idea that humans had spent 72 years getting ready to fight. Captain Sujin looked at her crew as alerts flashed across their screens. All around them, ships that had appeared to be simple cargo haulers and passenger liners were transforming. Hidden armor plating slid into place. Concealed weapon systems emerged from false hulls. Engines that had been running at minimum power suddenly roared to life. "All stations report ready," her tactical officer announced. "Signal the fleet," Sujin ordered. "Let's show our guests what humanity is really capable of." On the Galactic Council ship, High Arbiter Velthan stared at the tactical displays with growing confusion. According to their sensors, Earth's defense fleet had been small and outdated. But now the screens showed hundreds of new contacts appearing throughout the solar system. "This is impossible," muttered one of the other council members. "Where did these ships come from?" Velthan's four hands gripped the railing of the command platform. In 1,000 years of conquest, they had never encountered anything like this. Species either surrendered immediately when faced with superior force, or they made desperate last stands with whatever primitive weapons they possessed. None of them had ever laughed. None of them had ever been ready. The countdown began. 72 hours until the deadline. But as the first day passed, it became clear that something was very wrong with the Council's assumptions about humanity. The humans weren't preparing to surrender. They were preparing for war, and they had been preparing for a very long time. The Galactic Council expected to see panic. They watched human colonies through their advanced sensors, waiting for the chaos that always came before surrender. Instead, they saw something that confused them completely. Humans were working, not the desperate, frantic work of a dying civilization, but the calm, organized efficiency of people who knew exactly what they were doing. It was like watching a giant machine come to life, each piece moving with perfect timing. Dr. Haiwan stood in the control room of what the aliens thought was a simple research station orbiting Neptune. The facility looked harmless from the outside, just another human outpost studying the outer planets. But as she activated hidden systems, the station began to change. Walls slid apart to reveal manufacturing bays that stretched for kilometers. Assembly lines that had been disguised as laboratory equipment roared to life. In minutes, the facility was producing components for weapon systems that the Galactic Council had never seen before. "Production Line 7 is online," reported her assistant. "We'll have the first batch ready in 6 hours." Iwan nodded, watching the screens that showed similar transformations happening across human space. Every research station, every mining facility, every seemingly innocent outpost was revealing its true purpose. The humans had been lying for 70 years. On Mars, Foreman Kyung-ho walked through what had appeared to be a simple mining complex. The Council's scouts had visited this place many times, seeing nothing but humans digging holes in the red dirt. They had no idea that those holes led to vast underground factories. "How long until the first squadron is ready?" he asked his supervisor. "The ships are already built," the woman replied with a grin. "We just need to bring them up from the deep caverns. Another 12 hours and we'll have 50 combat vessels ready for launch." Kyung-ho looked at the massive elevator platforms that were rising from the planet's depths. Each one carried sleek ships that looked nothing like the clumsy cargo haulers the aliens had observed. These were warships built in secret and hidden away for decades. The Council had thought Mars was just a mining world. In reality, it was humanity's largest military shipyard. In the asteroid belt, Commander Boram watched her screens as mining platforms throughout the region received Protocol 7 activation codes. To alien observers, these platforms looked like simple rock-crushing operations. The truth was very different. Platform 17 confirms transformation complete. her communications officer reported. Railgun batteries are online and targeting systems are active. Boram smiled grimly. Each mining platform was actually a heavily armed fortress, capable of hurling asteroids at near-light speed. The humans had spent decades carefully positioning these weapons throughout the solar system, disguised as harmless industrial equipment. "What's our total firepower?" she asked. 234 platforms fully operational, sir. Each one capable of kinetic bombardment at ranges the enemy won't expect. The asteroid belt wasn't just a source of raw materials. It was the largest weapons array ever built, hidden in plain sight. But the most impressive transformation was happening on Earth itself. Lieutenant Nari watched from her position in the Swiss Alps as massive doors opened in the mountainsides. What emerged defied everything the aliens thought they knew about human civilization. Underground cities rose from hidden depths, each one capable of housing millions of people. These weren't hastily built shelters, but sophisticated urban centers that had been under construction for generations. They had their own power sources, their own manufacturing facilities, their own defensive systems. "Evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule," Nari reported to her commanding officer. "All civilians will be safely underground within 48 hours. The officer nodded. "And the surface installations?" "Ready to deploy. The moment the aliens make their move, they'll find out that Earth's real defenses aren't in space." The planet's surface was dotted with hidden weapons emplacements, each one disguised as something harmless. Farms that were actually missile silos, office buildings that contained particle beam cannons, monuments that could transform into orbital defense platforms. Engineer Jin Woo worked frantically in a facility buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around him, teams of humans put the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapon. Quantum communication arrays that could coordinate military actions across vast distances with no delay. "The entanglement network is stable," he reported to Admiral Taman. "Every human ship, station, and installation is now connected. We can coordinate fleet movements as if they were all in the same room." This was humanity's greatest advantage. While alien fleets relied on faster-than-light communications that still had noticeable delays, human forces could act as one massive organism spread across multiple star systems. The Galactic Council's spies had completely missed the true nature of human expansion. They thought humans were chaotic and disorganized, spreading randomly across space without any central plan. The reality was very different. Every human colony had been placed for maximum strategic advantage. Every trade route had been chosen to serve military purposes. Every diplomatic contact had been used to gather intelligence about alien weaknesses. Captain Sujin stood on the bridge of the Defiant as the ship underwent its own transformation. External hull panels slid away to reveal hidden armor plating. Cargo bays opened to show missile launchers and energy weapons. The ship's reactor, which had been running at minimum power for years, suddenly surged to full capacity. "All systems show green," her engineer reported. "We're ready for combat operations." "How many ships do we have?" Sujin asked. "Official count was 200 vessels," her tactical officer replied with a grin. "Actual count is just over 800. Every cargo ship, passenger liner, and research vessel in the fleet was built for war." The humans had been playing a game of deception that lasted for decades. Every alien who visited human space saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a young, primitive species that posed no threat to the established galactic order. In reality, humans had been studying their visitors carefully. They analyzed alien technology, learned about their weaknesses, and discovered the political tensions that kept the Galactic Council together. They knew which species hated each other, which economies were failing, and which worlds were on the verge of rebellion. Dr. Haiwan reviewed the intelligence reports that had been gathering for 70 years. "The Catherian Empire is having food production problems," she noted. "The Zephyrian Collective is dealing with a plague they can't cure. The crystalline hegemony is facing civil war." The council looked powerful from the outside, but humans had learned that it was actually held together by fear and politics. Many member species served reluctantly, kept in line only by the threat of force. Admiral Taman watched the transformation of human space with satisfaction. In 72 hours, the aliens would attack what they thought was a helpless world, defended by a handful of primitive ships. Instead, they would face a military force that had been specifically designed to fight a technologically superior enemy. "Status report," he ordered. All colonies report ready, his aide replied. Fleet transformation is 90% complete. Defensive installations are online. The quantum communication network is functioning perfectly, Taman nodded. And our special projects? The virus is ready for deployment. The frequency generators are in position. Strike teams are standing by on 17 council worlds. The humans hadn't just been building weapons. They had been preparing for a type of warfare that the Galactic Council had never encountered. They would use the aliens' own technology against them, turning their strengths into weaknesses. As the deadline approached, the Council's confidence began to waver. Their sensors showed massive changes throughout human space, but they couldn't understand what they were seeing. It was as if an entirely different civilization had suddenly appeared where primitive humans had been just days before. High Arbiter Velthon stared at the tactical displays with growing unease. How many ships do the humans have? Our estimates were based on observed vessels, his tactical officer replied nervously. But the sensor readings are confusing. It appears their fleet is much larger than we thought. How much larger? Possibly 10 times our original count. And sir, they're not acting like any species we've encountered before. Usually, primitive civilizations either surrender immediately or gather their forces for a final desperate battle. The humans are doing neither. Velthon's 4 hands gripped the control rail tighter. Then what are they doing? They appear to be hunting us, sir. Our patrol groups are reporting human ships appearing and disappearing throughout the outer system. They're not engaging directly, but they're watching everything we do. For the first time in his long military career, the High Arbiter felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. The humans were not following any pattern of behavior that the Council understood. They were not surrendering. They were not panicking. They were not even fighting in any conventional sense. They were preparing something that the Galactic Council could not comprehend. The 72-hour deadline was approaching, and for the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, the Council was not certain of victory. The 72-hour deadline passed without a word from Earth. High Arbiter Velthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays with growing frustration. No surrender. No desperate plea for mercy. No response at all. Send the attack order, he commanded. All fleets advance on the human homeworld. The massive Galactic Council armada began to move, thousands of ships closing in on Earth like a deadly storm. Their weapons charged, their shields raised, ready to crush the stubborn humans who dared to defy the galaxy's most powerful alliance. But as they approached the inner solar system, something impossible appeared on their sensors. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was tight with confusion. The human fleet? It's 3 times larger than it was yesterday. Velthon's black eyes widened. That's impossible. Ships don't just appear from nothing. The sensor logs confirm it, sir. Hundreds of new contacts throughout the system. They're everywhere. Admiral Taman smiled as he watched the alien fleets advance from Luna Base. Around him, his officers worked calmly at their stations, no trace of fear on their faces. Time to show them what we've really been building, he said quietly. Throughout human space, vessels that had appeared to be harmless cargo ships and passenger liners began their final transformation. External hull plates fell away like shed skin, revealing sleek warships underneath. Engines that had been deliberately throttled to seem weak roared to full power. Weapon systems that had been carefully hidden burst from concealed compartments. Captain Su Jin stood on the bridge of the Defiant as her ship shed its disguise. What had looked like a simple military cruiser revealed itself as something far more dangerous. Hidden armor plating locked into place. Missile pods extended from the hull. The ship's true weapons came online with a hum of deadly energy. All squadrons report ready, her communications officer announced. Signal the fleet, Su Jin ordered. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The first engagement happened near Jupiter. A council patrol group of 12 ships encountered what they thought was a small human convoy, fleeing toward the outer system. 6 human vessels against 12 alien warships should have been no contest. The council ships opened fire, their energy weapons lancing out across space. But the human ships didn't try to fight back in the traditional way. Instead, they scattered like a school of fish using Jupiter's massive bulk and its many moons as cover. The aliens pursued, confident in their superior firepower. They had no idea they were flying into a trap. Commander Boram watched from her hidden command post in the asteroid belt as the Council ships chased the human vessels deeper into Jupiter's gravitational field, right where she wanted them. Fire, she ordered quietly. Across the Jupiter system, mining platforms that had seemed harmless suddenly revealed their true purpose. Railgun batteries emerged from asteroid hideouts, their targeting systems locked onto the alien ships. In seconds, the space around Jupiter filled with projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The Council patrol never had a chance. Asteroids accelerated to near-light speed, tore through their shields like paper. In minutes, 12 alien warships were reduced to glowing debris. Target destroyed, Boram reported to Admiral Taman. No survivors. But the real surprise was still coming. Near Saturn, the Council's main battle group encountered something they had never seen before. The space around the ringed planet seemed to shimmer and move as if the very stars were dancing. Lieutenant Wu Jin grinned as he watched the enemy fleet approach. He was the youngest commander in the human navy, barely 25 years old, but he had been trained for this moment his entire life. Stealth fields holding, his engineer reported. They can't see us through the ring particles. The human ships were using Saturn's rings as the perfect camouflage. Thousands of ice and rock particles masked their signatures, making them invisible to alien sensors. The Council fleet moved forward blindly, having no idea they were surrounded. All ships on my mark, Wu Jin whispered into his communicator. Remember, we hit fast and hard, then disappear before they can respond. The attack came from everywhere at once. Human ships materialized from the ring particles like ghosts, their weapons blazing. They struck the alien formation from 6 different directions, then vanished back into the cosmic debris before the enemy could return fire. 3 Council dreadnoughts exploded in the first 30 seconds. 2 more followed quickly after. The remaining ships tried to pursue their attackers, but chasing human vessels through Saturn's rings was like trying to catch smoke. With bare hands, Engineer Jin Wu monitored the battle from his quantum communication center deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. The human fleet was coordinating their attacks with a precision that seemed impossible to the aliens. Ships separated by millions of kilometers moved as if they were connected by invisible strings. Gamma Squadron is engaging near Mars, he reported to Admiral Taman. Delta Group is hitting supply lines near Ceres. Echo Fleet is preparing for the main assault. The alien commander's worst nightmare was coming true. The humans weren't fighting like any species the Council had ever encountered. Instead of massive fleet battles, they fought like a swarm of angry insects, striking everywhere at once and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Dr. Haiwan watched the tactical displays from her command center. The aliens were powerful, but they had one critical weakness. They thought like a traditional military force. They expected enemies to meet them in open battle, fleet against fleet. Humans had learned a different way to fight. Activate the virus, she ordered. Across the Council fleet, alien computer systems began to malfunction. The virus that human programmers had spent decades perfecting spread through their quantum networks, turning their own technology against them. Weapon systems fired randomly. Navigation computers gave false readings. Communication arrays broadcast chaos instead of orders. The aliens had never encountered an enemy that used their own technology as a weapon against them. High Arbiter. Velthon watched his fleet dissolve into confusion with growing horror. In just 6 hours, he had lost over 100 ships to an enemy he couldn't even see clearly. His remaining vessels were scattered across the solar system, blind and confused. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officer. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered, the officer replied, his voice shaking. They're not fighting like a military force. They're fighting like hunters. Velthon's 4 hands trembled with rage and fear. Send all remaining ships to Earth. We'll overwhelm them with sheer numbers. But when the Council fleet reached Earth's orbit, they found something that made no sense at all. The planet was completely undefended. No orbital platforms, no defensive satellites, no fleet protecting humanity's homeworld. It was obviously a trap. But Velthon had no choice. His fleet was being torn apart by invisible enemies throughout the solar system. He had to end this quickly. Prepare for planetary bombardment, he ordered. That's when Earth revealed its true defenses. Lieutenant Nari smiled as she watched the alien fleet approach from her position deep beneath the Swiss Alps. The enemy had no idea that Earth's real military installations were hidden underground in the ocean depths, and inside what appeared to be innocent civilian structures. Surface batteries. Prepare to fire, she ordered. Across Earth's surface, monuments and buildings began to change. The Statue of Liberty's torch opened to reveal a massive energy cannon. Mount Rushmore's carved faces slid aside to show missile silos. Office buildings throughout major cities deployed defensive weapons that had been hidden for decades. The orbital bombardment that was supposed to destroy Earth's defenses never came. Instead, the alien fleet found itself under attack from the planet itself. Energy weapons reached up from the surface like fingers of light, tearing through Council ships. Missiles rose from hidden silos, their warheads designed specifically to penetrate alien shields. Captain Kyung-ho watched from Mars as the massive factories hidden beneath the red planet's surface sent their own contribution to the battle. Squadrons of human fighters erupted from concealed launch bays, racing across space to join the battle around Earth. The Galactic Council had expected to fight a primitive species with a handful of obsolete ships. Instead, they found themselves facing a military force that had been specifically designed to fight them. Every human weapon, every tactic, every strategy had been created with one purpose: defeating a technologically superior enemy. In 12 hours, the Council's invasion force was reduced to scattered survivors fleeing toward the outer system. High Arbiter Velthon found himself aboard a damaged flagship, his grand armada turned into burning wreckage. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "Signal all remaining ships. Full retreat." As the alien survivors limped away from Earth, Admiral Taman opened a communication channel to their flagship. "High Arbiter," he said calmly. "We tried to warn you. Next time perhaps you'll listen when someone tells you they're ready." The first battle was over. The Galactic Council had learned that humanity was not the primitive species they had believed, but the real war was just beginning. What the Galactic Council thought would be a quick victory became their worst nightmare. The humans didn't follow any rules of war that the aliens understood. They fought like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected and vanishing before anyone could strike back. High Arbiter Velthon stared at the tactical displays in his emergency command center, 3-star systems away from Earth. In 2 weeks, he had lost half his invasion fleet to an enemy he could barely track. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Another supply convoy destroyed near Proxima Centauri. His aide reported nervously. "That's the 4th one this week. How?" Velthon demanded. "We have 3 battle groups protecting that route. The humans hit them during a solar storm, sir. Our sensors couldn't track them through the radiation. By the time the storm passed, our ships were gone." Captain Kyung-ho smiled grimly as he read the mission report aboard his command ship. His wolf pack of human raiders had just completed another successful strike against Council supply lines. Using techniques that no alien military had ever imagined, they had turned space itself into their weapon. "Next target?" asked his tactical officer. "The fuel depot at Wolf 359, Kyung-ho replied. "Intelligence reports it's lightly defended. We'll hit it during the neutron star's radiation pulse, when their sensors will be blind." The humans had learned to use every natural phenomenon in space as cover for their attacks. Solar flares, asteroid fields, gas clouds, radiation from pulsars, all became tools in their invisible war against the Council. Dr. Haiwan worked frantically in her hidden laboratory aboard a research station, disguised as a simple ice mining platform. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers labored over alien technology that human agents had stolen, traded for or salvaged from battlefields over the past 70 years. "The shield harmonics are almost ready," her assistant reported. "Once we broadcast the frequency, their defensive systems should fail completely." Haiwan nodded, studying the complex equations on her screen. Humans might not be able to build technology as advanced as the Council's, but they had become masters at turning that technology against its creators. Every alien device they had ever encountered had been studied, reverse-engineered, and turned into a weapon. "Start the broadcast," she ordered. "Let's see how the Council likes fighting without their shields." Across Council space, alien commanders watched in horror as their ships' defensive systems began to fail for no apparent reason. The humans had found the exact frequency that disrupted their shield generators, and they were broadcasting it from hidden transmitters throughout the galaxy. Commander Boram led a strike team through the corridors of a Council research station near the galactic rim. Her soldiers moved like shadows, their advanced stealth suits making them nearly invisible to alien sensors. They had been planning this mission for 3 years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Target is 2 levels down," she whispered into her communicator. "Remember, we need those data cores intact." The humans weren't just fighting a military war. They were stealing the Council's secrets one facility at a time. Every research station, every classified database, every hidden laboratory became a target for human special forces teams that seemed to appear from nowhere. Lieutenant Nari crouched in the ventilation system of a Council command center on Rigel 7, listening to the alien officers below discuss their latest defeats. She had been hiding on this world for 6 months, posing as a harmless human traitor while gathering intelligence for the resistance. "The humans are like a plague," one of the aliens was saying. "Every time we think we've found them, they vanish. Every time we secure a system, they attack somewhere else." Nari smiled and activated her recording device. This information would be very useful to Admiral Taman. The aliens had no idea that humans had been infiltrating their worlds for decades. What they thought were innocent traders, tourists, and diplomats were actually intelligence agents, saboteurs, and military scouts. When the war began, these sleeper cells activated simultaneously across Council space. Engineer Jinwoo monitored the chaos from his quantum communication center beneath Earth's ocean. His screens showed human operations across dozens of star systems, all coordinated through the instantaneous communication network that gave humanity its greatest advantage. "Strike Team 7 has secured the weapons facility on Vega Prime," he reported to Admiral Taemin. "Strike Team 12 is extracting research data from the laboratory on Altair. Wolfpack Alpha just destroyed another supply convoy near Barnard's Star." The aliens were fighting a war on 1,000 fronts, never knowing where the humans would strike next. Their own technology, which should have given them an overwhelming advantage, was being used against them by an enemy that seemed to understand it better than they did. Captain Su-Jin studied the star charts in her cabin aboard the Defiant. Her ship had been hunting Council patrols for 2 weeks, appearing from hyperspace at the exact moment when enemy vessels were most vulnerable. The humans had learned to predict alien patrol patterns with deadly accuracy. "New target identified," her tactical officer reported. "Council heavy cruiser alone and heading for the Tau Ceti system." "Perfect," Su-Jin replied. "We'll hit them when they drop out of hyperspace. They'll never see us coming." The human attack came just as the alien ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, its crew disoriented and its systems still cycling back online. By the time the Council vessel could react, it was already dying, torn apart by human weapons that struck from impossible angles. High Arbiter Velthon received reports of defeat after defeat, each one more impossible than the last. The humans were fighting like no species the Council had ever encountered. They used tactics that shouldn't work, appeared in places they couldn't reach, and defeated forces that should have been invincible. "They're not fighting like a military," his tactical advisor observed. "They're fighting like pirates, terrorists, and ghosts all at the same time. How do we stop an enemy we can't find?" Velthon asked desperately. "I don't know, sir. Every time we think we understand their strategy, they do something completely different." The truth was even worse than the aliens realized. The humans weren't just winning individual battles. They were systematically dismantling the Council's entire military structure. Supply lines were being cut. Communication networks were being infiltrated. Key installations were being destroyed or captured. Dr. Haiwan's teams had broken the Council's military codes months ago. Every alien message was being intercepted, decoded, and used to plan the next human attack. The Council's own communication system had become humanity's greatest intelligence asset. Lieutenant Wu Jin led his squadron through an asteroid field where a Council battle group was trying to hide from human raiders. The young commander had become legendary among human forces for his ability to find enemies in impossible places. Thermal scans show 3 ships hiding behind the large asteroid cluster, his sensor operator reported. "They think they're safe in there." "They're about to learn otherwise," Wu Jin replied with a grin. "All ships prepare for close-quarters combat. We're going hunting." The human fighters dove into the asteroid field like sharks entering a coral reef. In the confined space between the floating rocks, their superior maneuverability gave them a deadly advantage. The alien ships, built for open space warfare, couldn't compete in the chaotic environment. In minutes, 3 Council warships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Admiral Taman reviewed the daily reports with satisfaction. In 3 weeks of warfare, the humans had destroyed or captured over 300 Council vessels while losing fewer than 50 of their own. The aliens' technological advantage meant nothing when they couldn't find their enemies. The Council is pulling back from 5 more systems, his intelligence officer reported. Their forces are concentrating around their core worlds. Good, Taman replied. Let them huddle in their fortress. We'll pick off their outlying forces one by one. But the humans weren't content to simply win battles. They were fighting a different kind of war, one designed to destroy the Council's will to fight, rather than just their military forces. Commander Boram's teams had infiltrated the Council's propaganda networks, replacing their messages of strength and unity with reports of human victories. Alien populations began to question whether their leaders could protect them from the invisible human threat. Engineer Jin Woo coordinated cyber attacks that crippled Council infrastructure across dozens of worlds. Power grids failed. Transportation networks shut down. Communication systems broadcast nothing but static. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could strike anywhere, anytime, without warning. The psychological impact was devastating. Council species that had served the Alliance for centuries began to question their loyalty. Some worlds started negotiating secret peace deals with human representatives. Others simply declared neutrality and withdrew from the war entirely. High Arbiter Velthan realized with growing horror that he wasn't just losing a military campaign. He was watching the Galactic Council itself begin to collapse. The humans had found the Alliance's greatest weakness. It was held together by fear, not loyalty. Request immediate reinforcements. The war had lasted 6 months, and the Galactic Council was dying. High Arbiter Velthan stood in the ruins of his command center, watching the tactical displays show the collapse of everything he had spent his life defending. 12 member species had withdrawn from the Alliance. Supply lines were cut across half the galaxy, and the humans continued their invisible war, striking where they were least expected. Sir, his communications officer called out, voice tight with fear. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Velthan straightened, his forearms trembling slightly. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Tae-min aboard what appeared to be a simple human command ship. But Velthan had learned not to trust appearances when it came to humans. High Arbiter, Tae-min said calmly, I think it's time we talked. You want to negotiate our surrender? Velthan asked, trying to keep the desperation from his voice. Tae-min smiled. Actually, I want to offer you our help. The alien commander's black eyes widened in confusion. Help? You've been destroying us for 6 months. We've been defending ourselves, Tae-min corrected gently. But we've also been learning about your real problems. The ones you've been hiding from your own people. Before Velthan could respond, new contacts appeared on his sensors. Human ships were approaching the Council's capital world of Nexus Prime, but they weren't coming in attack formation. They were flying in the pattern used for humanitarian missions. Captain Sujin led the human fleet toward the heavily defended alien homeworld. Her ships carried no weapons, at least none that were visible. Instead, their cargo bays were filled with medical supplies, food, and something even more valuable. Hope. This is Captain Sujin of the Earth Defense Force, she broadcast on all frequencies. We're carrying medical aid for the plague affecting your population. The response from the alien defenders was immediate and panicked. How do you know about the plague? That information is classified at the highest levels. Dr. Haiwan smiled as she listened to the conversation from her laboratory ship. Her teams had spent months analyzing alien biology, not to create weapons, but to solve medical problems that Council scientists couldn't understand. The plague has been affecting your people for 3 years, she broadcast to the Council leadership. Your scientists can't cure it because they're thinking about it the wrong way. You see it as a biological weapon. We see it as a puzzle to solve. The truth was more complex than either side had admitted. The humans had discovered that the mysterious plague threatening the Council's core worlds was actually the result of environmental damage caused by their own industrial expansion. The aliens had been so focused on controlling their empire that they had poisoned their own planets. Commander Boram led a team of human scientists and engineers down to the surface of Nexus Prime. Around them, Alien cities showed signs of decay and neglect. The mighty Galactic Council was literally falling apart from within. "The atmospheric processors are failing," she reported to Admiral Tayman. "Their air recycling systems are centuries out of date. No wonder their population is getting sick." Engineer Jinwoo studied the alien technology with fascination. The Council had spent so much effort on building weapons and maintaining control that they had neglected the basic infrastructure needed to support their civilization. "Their power grid is completely inefficient," he observed. "They're wasting 80% of their energy output, and their food production systems are failing because they never learned to adapt to climate change." The humans had come to realize something that shocked them. The mighty Galactic Council was not a thriving civilization but a dying one. They had conquered the galaxy, but in doing so they had created problems they couldn't solve. Lieutenant Nari worked with alien civilians in the lower levels of Nexus Prime's capital city. The people she met were nothing like the proud warriors who had demanded Earth's surrender. They were tired, sick, and afraid. "How long has your government been hiding the truth about the plague?" she asked a local administrator. The alien looked around nervously before answering. "Years. They keep telling us that everything is under control, but people keep getting sicker. Our children are dying, and the Council says it's just a temporary setback." This was the secret that the Council had been desperately trying to hide. Their empire was collapsing from the inside. The war with humanity was just another distraction from problems they couldn't solve. Lieutenant Wu Jin coordinated with human engineers as they began repairing alien infrastructure. Their work was watched by crowds of curious aliens who had never seen anything like it. "Your species thinks differently than ours," observed one of the alien engineers. "You see connections that we miss." "That's because we learned from everyone," Wu Jin replied. "Your people stayed separate, each species keeping to itself. We studied all of you and combined your knowledge with our own. This was humanity's greatest discovery." While the Council species had remained isolated by pride and politics, humans had been synthesizing knowledge from dozens of different civilizations. They had taken the best ideas from each species and combined them into something entirely new. Dr. Haiwan presented her findings to the assembled Council leadership in a meeting that would have been impossible just weeks before. The chamber was filled with representatives from species that had been enemies for centuries, all brought together by humanity's unique perspective. "The plague isn't a disease," she explained, displaying her research on the chamber's main screen. "It's your planet's trying to tell you that your industrial processes are destroying the ecosystem. You've been treating the symptoms instead of the cause." The alien scientist listened with growing amazement as she outlined solutions that none of them had considered. Humanity's chaotic nature, which the Council had seen as a threat, was actually the key to solving problems that rigid hierarchical thinking couldn't address. "You're saying that our entire approach to planetary management is wrong?" asked one of the alien researchers. "Not wrong," Haiwan replied diplomatically. "Just incomplete. You've been so focused on control that you forgot about balance." Captain Kyung-ho worked with alien industrial engineers to redesign their manufacturing processes. What the humans showed them seemed impossible. Production systems that actually improved the environment instead of damaging it. "Your species has been dealing with these problems for how long?" asked an amazed alien supervisor. "We had to learn fast," Kyung-ho replied with a grin. "We almost destroyed our own planet before we figured out how to live in harmony with it." "That was about 300 years ago." The alien stared at him in shock. "In 3 centuries, humanity had solved environmental problems that the Council couldn't address in 3 millennia. Admiral Tae-min met with High Arbiter Velthon in a private chamber aboard the human flagship. The alien leader looked older than his years, worn down by the weight of an empire that was crumbling despite his best efforts. "Why are you helping us?" Velthon asked quietly. "We came to conquer your world. We wanted to enslave your people." "Because you were afraid," Tae-min replied simply. "You saw us expanding and you thought we were a threat, but you didn't understand what we were really doing." "What were you doing?" "Learning. Every world we visited, every species we met, we studied and learned from them. We weren't trying to build an empire. We were trying to understand how to survive in a galaxy full of challenges that none of us could face alone." The revelation hit Velthon like a physical blow. "You're saying that your expansion wasn't military?" "It was educational," Tae-min confirmed. We knew that someday we'd face problems we couldn't solve by ourselves. So we made sure we'd have friends to help us when that day came. This was the final truth that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity hadn't been building a military force to conquer their neighbors. They had been building a network of knowledge and cooperation that could address challenges no single species could handle alone. The war officially ended, not with surrender, but with a treaty that transformed the Galactic Council into something entirely new. Instead of an empire based on force, it became an alliance based on cooperation. Instead of conquest, they focused on solving the problems that threatened all civilizations. Commander Borum watched from the observation deck of a joint human-alien research station as ships from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible just months before. The galaxy was healing, one world at a time. Engineer Jin Wu coordinated the new quantum communication network that connected every member of the Reformed Council. For the first time in galactic history, every species could share knowledge instantly, working together as if they were one vast organism spread across the stars. Dr. Haiwan led teams of researchers from 12 different species as they tackled challenges that had seemed impossible, restoring dead worlds, curing ancient plagues, and developing technologies that worked in harmony with natural systems instead of against them. High Arbiter Velthun, now serving as chairman of the Reformed Galactic Alliance, stood before the assembly of species that had once been bitter enemies. On the main screen behind him, data flowed showing the restoration of dozens of worlds that had been dying just months before. The humans taught us something we had forgotten, he said to the gathered representatives. We are Stro.